I get to talk about this now. I'm. I think I started my replay of this like near the end of February, maybe mid-February, and I finished it about a week ago. So still, like, but before I mean, we're still not even halfway through March technically, but it was still in the early parts of March. I think my final playtime was about 46, 47 hours ish, which, from what I remember of the first time I played it, I remember the game being a lot longer, but that might also be because I hadn't played games like Persona, where that's like half a Persona playthrough. Gosh, I think that's almost like a third of my time in P5R was like 120. So it's almost not quite a third of my time in P5R, but surprisingly close. So, for me, this is still a long game. I mean, it was damn near 50 hours, but I've definitely played longer games. But of course, the quantity of a game does not necessarily equate to its quality. You can play games that are really long and are ass. You can play games that are really short and are really good. And, just because a game is kind of a middle kind of length doesn't necessarily mean it's a mid game. This to me is not a mid game. I fucking love this game. It was first introduced to me probably around 2005 or so, which is about a year after it came to the States. I think I was about 12. Not exactly when I first played it, because I had a friend. I remember his name was Daniel. I think his last name was Lee. But shout out to him. I haven't talked to him since 6th grade. It's been a long time since I've seen or thought about that dude. But, excuse me. He introduced me to the game. I watched him play parts of it. I might have done a little bit of co-op with him. I got to see a lot of the scenes, and I think it goes without saying, like, I'm going to be just spoiling the entire game, but I was right about to spoil a big scene, so I'll just go ahead and say that. If you want the completely unspoilered thoughts in the game, like I said, I fucking love it. One of my favorite games of all time. Go play it. Play either this version, the original GameCube version, or apparently the PS3 version. Apparently the new remaster is god-awful. I've heard that like the load times are terrible. It doesn't do the transition in between like combat. Which, is that a minor thing? Yes, but it's something I really like, how the screen just cracks and shatters. Like, oh, it's so fucking cool. I love that. Apparently that's not in there. It runs at only 30 frames per second, which the GameCube version is the only version to run at 60 FPS, which is weird. But if you have a chance to play it, make sure you play a good version. Okay? I'm going to give a quick countdown, and then we're just going to full spoiler territory. Whatever I say is whatever I say. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom. Okay. I specifically remember almost 20 years ago watching the scene where Mythos just starts kicking you at Altessa's house, where like he's fully revealed as the main antagonist and just and it keeps going until you push A, so you can be there for a while if you really want to, and I think it's really funny how that works. And it's like, yeah, even like damn near 20 years later, I remember a lot of aspects about the game. And then my own playthrough ended up being, because it took me a while to actually get my own GameCube, and then even longer to get my own copy of Symphonia. But I think it was a solid 2, maybe 3 years after I was first introduced to it that I played it. And then, because I could only play games during the weekends and on holidays, took me a long time to finish it, which I think is another reason the game felt so long. And then I would get a new game, and I would start playing that, and I would get a new game, and I would start playing that. So it took me a while to eventually finish Symphonia, which is, again, probably another reason the game felt so long. But I know I had finished that playthrough, like, before the 2010s even started. So, maybe about 08, 09 at worst. So it's been well over a decade since I had done my first playthrough of the game, and again, there were just so many things I remembered. A lot of almost like the entirety of the Silverant third of the game. Like, I remember this, I remember this, I remember this. There's like little lines of dialogue I remembered. There were some skits I remembered. I remembered all the main characters. I remembered their names. I remembered how they looked. I remembered, for the most part, like a lot of their character arcs. I definitely didn't appreciate them as much the first time through. Like, I remember not liking Colette, not liking Zelos. I think I thought Sheena was okay, and like not enjoying Genus or Rain all that much. Like I didn't hate them by any means, but nowhere near. I didn't appreciate them nearly as much as I did this playthrough. This, it's like replaying the game made me realize it's about as good as I can't even say that because I feel like it's way better than I remember it in terms of its story, and I already remember its story being fantastic. It's definitely better in terms of its soundtrack because over like 10, 20 years, I forgot a lot of the songs, and then replaying them, I'm like, oh, I remember this one. Oh, I remember this one. And even, excuse me, even some I didn't quite recognize, like, oh, this is a banger, this is a banger. It's gonna get more organized, I swear, though. I'll actually go through presentation, gameplay, and narrative. Right now, I'm just kind of talking about my history of the game and other things I remember, blah, 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 blah. To me, this is one of the most important video games ever made. And I specifically preface that with to me. It is not one of those where I'm like, this right here changed gaming. It changed how people looked at video games. It changed how like video games were written and like blah 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 blah. I don't know if it did. I don't think it did, although I could be wrong. I mean, I think it was the first Tales game to come to the West. So in that case, I guess it is a pretty important game if you like the series, and I've played 4 of them to completion, 3 of which I really liked, that being this, Vesperia, and Berseria. One of which, Tales of Arise, I'm very mixed on. There's things about it I love, there's things about it, like cure points, that I can't fucking stand. I had tried to play Abyss, I couldn't get into it, but I want to give it another shot, especially because I was playing on the 3DS, and I do kind of wonder, would I have enjoyed it more playing it on a console? And Clay has it right now on console, and it's on my list of games I want to play this year. It's not immediately on deck, because again, I'm playing Fire Emblem Engage. That takes up a lot of my time, and I'm also supposed to be reading Fate, and I haven't read it in a few days between being busy with stuff and then being busy with Fire Emblem, but I need to do that too, because I've been meaning to do that for years. But Abyss is something that's probably a little later in the year, but I still really want to give it that second chance. So in terms of, bringing Tales to the West, it is an important game. But for me, this game really showed me what a video game narrative can be. Because a lot of the games I had played were like Pokemon, and this was before Black came out. This was around Ruby and Sapphire. I'm trying to think if Diamond was out yet. No, Diamond wasn't out yet. So this was Ruby and Sapphire, where Pokemon is not known for its plot. One of my most played games at that point was Mario 64, a game not known for its plot. This is when I also got into Kingdom Hearts, a game that is unfortunately known for its plot. But even like Kingdom Hearts 1 is a game that definitely has a story, but to me, Kingdom Hearts 1 is a game that's kind of less about its plot and its story, and it's more about its charm. Like, I don't know if I've actually done a video on Kingdom Hearts or Kingdom Hearts 2. I would love to, and just, to me, what makes KH1 work so well is that Disney magic. And I think it is the only game in the series to really capture it. I know a lot of people say Kingdom Hearts 2 is a better game overall, and I don't necessarily disagree. It's way more fun. I think it's more polished. And I think the story is better, but KH1 is just special to me in a way that Kingdom Hearts 2 is as well. Like, to me, like, if I had to rank the two of them, they would be dead even, but they're both phenomenal for different reasons. But as Kingdom Hearts came, it's like, all right, telling stories and shit, and I'm getting into it, because I remember, like, really getting into it by the end. This, to me, was something that made me go, you can tell, like, a big, sweeping narrative in a game. You can have all this interesting world building, you can have all these really cool, interesting twists and turns, and you can make the game fun as fuck. Like, this, I don't know if I can say it was something that directly influenced me, because can't really point to a lot of my work and go like, oh, that is clearly inspired by Symphonia. But I think it is something that did make me get a lot more interested in creating stories and crafting worlds. I remember in 4th grade, we had our daily journal time, which is when my love of writing really started. And I discovered Symphonia in actually, when did I discover Symphonia? It was in that same, because I can remember because I've moved around a lot, I can remember it's like, okay, when I lived here, this is the stuff that happened. So I remember when I lived in California for the second time, that's when I knew Symphonia, I got to the Battle Network games, Kingdom Hearts 1, and that's kind of when the journal time writing thing happened. I don't remember exactly what the order was. I think journal time happened first and then Symphonia, but regardless, writing is cool, stories is cool, creating is cool, and I don't think it's necessarily a coincidence that these two things happened around us. I mean, it's total coincidence. What I mean is the fact that these two things happen close together, and now writing is like creating stories and shit is like my biggest passion in the world. That I don't think is a coincidence. So this is a game that to me is like irreplaceably important. But going away from its actual impact on me, now that I have replayed it, what do I actually think of it? And as we can tell, I've already spoiled it. I love it. I think it's phenomenal. But let's get into the nitty gritty. Let's go into the why, the how, and also the warts, because it's not a perfect game. As much as I might want to convince myself otherwise, there are some points I do have to take off in some areas. But let's start, as we try to do always, with the presentation. So the graphics of the game, it's a kind of cel-shaded art style. Not quite looking like Wind Waker, but, you know, that kind of similar anime style. I love it. I mean, like, I like that kind of art style, just generally and genuinely. But also, to me, it's the kind of shit that doesn't age. Because I can look at some games from around that era that just look really old or like didn't age as well. Like I remember playing the remaster of Final Fantasy X a couple years ago because I've never played the original, and going like, boy, this is the remaster, and it still looks kind of jank in some areas. And again, like replaying Kingdom Hearts and Kingdom Hearts 2, like the original PS2 versions, like yeah, there's some areas where this doesn't quite hold up visually as it used to. And I think the remasters look great. And it's not like I'm like, ugh, this game looks ugly now. But it ages a lot better. Or like, I mean, it's a PS1 game, but when I played Final Fantasy IX a couple months ago, I was like, ugh. There's parts of the game where it looks fine, and then there's points where I am just looking at missing no. Like, this is just a bunch of pixels meshed together. That's not a problem with Symphonia, like, at all. So I really like that. I really like its look. I really like its art style. The character designs, I don't know if I can really say it's like, man, these are like some top tier great designs, but they stuck with me. They've stuck with me for like 20 years. I remember what these people look like. I remember their faces. I remember their hair color. I remember their eye. Well, I don't know if I still remember their eye colors, but like I remember their hair color. I remember their clothes. I remembered like Lloyd's like super red outfit. Colette's, it's not even like a robe, but like her ensemble, I guess. Rain's nice robe. Kratos had this nice ass purple cloak, which, again, if you know me, I love coats, cloaks, and hats and jackets. So like Rain, I think looks great. Kratos looks great. I wish people in this game had really nice hats. It's like it's the one thing the character, like, I don't think there's a single main character outside of like a costume you can get that just has a nice hat. But aside from that, like I really have no problem with them. To me, the fact that they are so iconic and have stuck with me for so long makes them great, rather than me saying it's like, yeah, I think it, like, you can tell them by their silhouette, or like you can really look at this person and see exactly what they're about. I don't really get that with Lloyd or Genus. They just kind of look like dudes, but it's just iconic, burned in my skull, which is great, I guess. The voice acting. I would say for every line that's kind of weirdly delivered, because there's a non-zero amount of them, that same character will have about 2 to 5 lines that are really well delivered. Because I feel like for the most part, the voice acting is consistently good. And there's some times where I'm like, the voice acting here is great. I I always think of the coffee scene. The coffee scene, again, is a fucking iconic burned in my skull scene. I actually cried watching it this time. I remember that being really well delivered. There's some Colette lines that it's like when you're in Tetheala and you run into Kratos and Cyback, and he kind of goes up to you. Colette's gotten her soul back. He's like, "Hey, Chosen, you really shouldn't wear that Crucius Crystal. You just need to take it off, make everything easier." And she just goes, "No." And that was really fucking hype to me. Like, I can't lie. And part of that was also, just like the character and seeing her like get to a point where she feels comfortable saying that to somebody was amazing. But just the way it was delivered, just the no, back off. Loved it. On top of that, what's another line I'm trying to think of it on my head? Another one that I remember like really got me is after the Rodile fight, which I don't know if you specifically need to have Persea in your party for, because she was once I got Persea, she was just the character I played. She's actually really fun. Like I'll talk about that more when I get to gameplay. So I don't remember if you have to have her in it. But after the fight was over, because, usually after a fight, the character who does, like, the final blow will kind of talk some shit. And then if it's a boss, depending on the boss, they might get, like, a special line. Like, at the end of the final boss, you have Lloyd, "Goodbye." Mythos. Like, it's just such a long pause, and it's so weird. Like, that's kind of one of those weirdly delivered lines. Like, I could have ordered a pizza in the amount of time. Like, you were paused. Why did you do that? But probably my favorite one of those is after killing Rodile, Persea, it was something along the lines of, "This isn't gonna give me back the time I lost." And she just sounds so, like, hollow and heartbroken when she delivers it. And I was like, fuck, that was a really good line. I actually didn't know it was Tara Strong. I was like, you're in this game? What the hell? I didn't know that. This actually got a hype. But, like, that was something I thought was really well delivered. I have to say this about character designs. I don't know what it is about Regal, but whenever he's directly facing me, he looks weird. Like, it's something about his eyes, like the way they're colored. Maybe it's just like his hair is slightly in his eyes, but it's everyone else. If you look at him from the side, they look fine. If you look at him from the front, they look fine. If you look at him from the back, they look fine. And then you have Regal, just when he's front facing, I'm like, it looks a little off. It's not something that super bothers me because it didn't happen. It didn't happen often enough for me to say, okay, this is weird. I gotta take points off for this. Like, it's not that big of a deal. I was like, that's kind of fucking weird. I don't know why. He's the only character who's like that. But yeah, I think the voice acting is really good. The music, the Silver, I don't know why my brain just stopped, but the Silverant map theme. Do, 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 do. It's the kind of music that just makes me feel like I am on an adventure. I am ready to go explore. Let's go fucking save the world. It's a different vibe from How They Walk in Liberl, but it reminds me a lot of that song from Trails in the Sky FC, where it's the kind of song it's the kind of overworld theme that perfectly encapsulates the vibe of the game. Skies is, I'm on an adventure with my best friend / brother / love interest. That sounds really, really weird out of context. And even saying how there's a context makes it sound weird, but trust me, it's not. God, I don't want to continue that sentence. Watch a Trails in the Sky video. It makes sense. I love it. Anyways, point. It is a song that just gives you the sense of, I'm going on an adventure with my good friend, and we're going to have a blast. Like, it's super fun, low-key, it's great. This is the kind of song that makes you feel like, I'm about to go save the world. I am getting hyped, I'm getting excited, let's go explore, and I love it. The battle thing, do 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 It's so fucking good. It's so hype. I love it. The song when you go to the seals, which I can't really like replicate it, but I can hear it in my head. I like that weird kind of mystical sound, like it reminds me of that one song from the Fate Stay Night anime, which I don't think is in the visual novel, where the do 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 do. I fucking love that track. Like, to me, that is the track that encapsulates Fate, because it has that very, like I said, it's very mystical, very mysterious, very kind of magical, and the theme of the seals is very similar. I love it. I think it works so well. You've got some of like the theme, like the renegade base and the human ranches, which is really good. A lot of the individual town themes, I can't like recall them off the top of my head, but as I was playing, I was like, this one's really good, this one's really good, this one's really good. Holy shit, these are all bangers. Like, I think some of them were actually like, yo, like, this is a really good bop, and a lot of them were just like, this is just like nice music. This is just nice background music. I like this. I love this. And like some of the boss themes are really hyped. Like I know the one that plays like when you fight Sword Dancer just gives me that sense of something's wrong. I know it plays a few times, like it's not just the Sword Dancer theme from what I remember. It's kind of the you fucked up when you're fighting this dude, and I love it. Yggdrasil's theme is so good. It's so like unsettling. Sorry, I'm just geeking because I really like it. And then when you go to Tetheala, the battle theme and overworld theme, I think, are both good. That's it. When I was talking about the map theme, my brain was saying, like, the open world theme. I'm like, that doesn't sound right. It's not an open world game. I mean, almost, because you can, like, really explore the map. It's still quite linear. Overworld was the term I wanted. Thank you, me. The overworld theme and map theme in Tetheala, I think, are good, not great. But then you do the temples, and it's that same theme from the Seals and Silverhawk, but it's now kind of got like this drum line to it, and it sounds so good. I was like, oh my god, like it's like this one small change, and it turned the theme from being like this really cool mystical thing that I get into to, yo, this got really hype all of a sudden. Let's fucking go. Presentation to me is a 5 out of 5. Like, I love the way it looks. I love the soundtrack. I think the voice acting really holds up. Again, every now and then it's kind of weird, but it's still solid. Like, I remember talking about Lunar and how Lunar is old, and you can tell it's old. But to me, a lot of its oldness and it becomes jank, but it's a charming kind of jank. And so I still, while I can objectively look at it and go, this is old, like the voice acting here isn't good, it still is charming. But here, even though this is also old, it's 20 years old at this point, I'm like, no, this actually genuinely holds up. It's really good. It's really well done. I don't think it's so good that I could quite give it extra points. Like, it's not one of, to me, it's like, I love the soundtrack, clearly, but, like, I don't think it's as good as, like, Persona 5 or Trails in the Skies, and it's not like the art style, to me, is just so visually interesting, the way something like Okami, again, Persona 5, or Cuphead, where I could say, I gotta give this extra points, but I think it's, like, yeah, like, I would still give it full marks regardless. So now we get into gameplay, where I'm just going to say this is the only part of the review where I am going to take some points off, because I'm clearly not going to take any fucking points off for the story. Gameplay can really be divided into two sections. Combat, I guess maybe three. It's like combat, world exploration, and then the puzzles and like dungeons. World exploration's kind of one of those where like, I guess I can talk about it a little bit, but so I might as well. So I'll just do that one first to get it out of the way. So the way you explore the world is you either walk around, and then if you find certain like little stone tablets, you can ride on your giant dog thing, which is notably faster. And then after a certain point in Tetheala, it's the Renegade base, which I'd say is maybe around the halfway point of the game. That's when you get the Reyard, so this is essentially your airship. There's also a point where you get a boat, and you don't have to do a whole lot with it, so it's really not worth bringing up. But then, like, once you get the Reyard, it's like, cool, now we have, like, way better travel. There is no fast travel in the game. You can't just go, at least I never found it. you can't just say, cool, like, I've been to this place before, let me just hit a couple buttons and immediately go there. No, you have to physically go there. And there's some times in the game where it's like, especially we're like, all right, now we are literally hopping between worlds, which you can only do at like one specific section of each world, especially if you're doing a lot of side quests, which in this run, I really tried to do quite a few of them. Not all of them, there's a fuck ton. But I only try to do quite a bit of side quests, so I'm like, all right, I would love to be able to just fast travel between places, but I can't. And it's pretty ass. And I really don't. Okay, so the map is essentially like, okay, once you go to an area, it shows up as a dot on the map. But until you've been there and like have actually been able to go inside, it won't show up as a dot on the map. I bring that up because sometimes like, I know there's something around here probably, but it's not showing up on my map. And I know I need to go to this place. So then you might think, okay, well, I do have a map item that lets you like see a view of the map. Yes, but it's not like, okay, here's a dot, like here, let me bring up a blank page real quick. I want to see if I can do like I don't have a pen on me. Let's say you bring up your map tab. So this is your map tab, this blank sheet of paper. And then let's say your location is right here where my thumb is, and you're trying to go to this city, and you know that this is another city that's nearby. This is really crude. I'm just kind of making this up as I go. I'm sorry. I probably look and sound really dumb. So you're here, you know this place, and then this is the place you're trying to go. So you would probably see that on the map and go, oh, okay, I know I need to go here. I'm right here at the thumb, so I know I need to go up. Or I could go like to the side and get to the place I've been before, maybe like restock on items or some shit. At least I have a waypoint. Symphonia doesn't do that with its map. Like when you open like, all right, let me like check the map. It just gives you coordinates. And I just can't read it. I really just can't make heads or tails of it. I'm like, I know where I'm trying to go. I know it's close, but I'd like to be able to just see, this is the dot where you are. This is the dot where you need to go. Go this direction. Instead, it's just like, it's right there. I'm like, but on this screen, it doesn't even show me where I am. So this is awful. And then, but your mini-map will, like your mini-map when you're on the overworld will show you dots of places you have been, but of course, unless you've actually been to the place, it won't show up as a dot, so you won't necessarily know that something's there until you go over there, which, yes, does invite exploration. But once you've kind of gotten to the point where you're like, I'm trying to get to the next thing, or like, I know there's a lot of things in this area, or I've gotten lost, it starts to get annoying. It's not awful. It almost kind of is, actually. But it's not the worst thing. But it does bother me at times. I'd be lying if I said otherwise. It's obnoxious, I feel like is what it is. Which is a word I'm really going to get to when I talk about let me go ahead and do the puzzles next. If I'm going to talk about one thing I don't like about the game, let's do the other thing I don't like about the game. This, to me, was really noticeable in Tetheala. In Silverhunt, I really didn't have a problem with this. I thought a lot of, the puzzles you had to do were either, okay, this is pretty brain-dead simple, or it's like, oh, okay, I know what I'm doing, I can kind of figure out the gimmick, it's no problem. Then Tetheala just starts doing annoying, dumb shit. For example, let's look at the Temple of Darkness. The Temple of Darkness's gimmick is, there's these blocks and slabs you can push and pull. And it's like, all right, if I push this one in, another thing somewhere else will end up going out. Or if I pull this one out, something else will go in, which will let you maneuver around the dungeon more. I really like that gimmick, actually. The dungeon is, it's pretty big, but the actual area where that affects is small enough, where it's not super annoying. Problem is, what you do with this gimmick is, and essentially, you are trying to rebuild the boss that you were trying to fight. And it's these bunch of, little dudes, and then you have to get them all together, lead them into the bottom, and they turn to the big dude. The little dudes don't necessarily follow you the way they should. Like, I'm like, all right, come follow me. And then they'll just kind of stay still. Or they'll get stuck in a corner when they really shouldn't. And so then I have to go back to get them. And like, okay, I'm following you now. And then I start going. And then they're still like way lagging behind. It's not like I'm just booking it. I might actually be kind of waiting for them. Like, I'm going to go a little slow. And they just don't follow. It's so janky and annoying and dumb. And I'm like, I like the actual puzzle solving in this dungeon. But this one part of it just makes it annoying. It just feels obnoxious. The Temple of Earth. So you go to the dungeon, and the first thing that happens, because like I don't remember exactly how you get there. There's like some crazy shit happened. I think it's after you fight the dragons? That sounds familiar. I think it's like you fight the dragons, get Colette, you end up crashing, and you're like, oh, hey, we woke up right outside the Temple of Earth. Well, we need to do these anyways. Let's go. So you go inside, and the dude's like, hey, assholes, my brother is an NPC somewhere else. Go find him and bring him over here, and then I'll let you enter. What bullshit is this? What the fuck? I think it kind of gives you an idea of where you have to go, but it's also just like, okay. You really had this perfect setup, and it's a little overly convenient that you're right beside it, but like, all right, cool, we can go in, do the next dungeon. No, we had to immediately turn around and go somewhere else. So again, fast travel will be kind of nice, but then you have to go all the way over there, find the dude. It's a place you've been before, and I remember seeing that NPC. I deadass thought it was a monster, because monsters will move around in dungeons and on the overworld. And then you start combat by running into them. So it's a no random encounter game, which I fucking love. Excuse me, shout out Trail, shout out Lunar. Shout out modern Pokemon, I guess. Sorry, brain stopped for a second. But you see the enemy, you see him running around. I was like, I didn't want to fight him, so I ignored it, but apparently I needed to talk to him, so I talked to him, and he's like, oh, you need me to go to the dungeon? Cool, but first I want to try a potion, so go get me a potion. Okay, so to do this, I had to come all the way here and do you, but to do this, I have to go all the way somewhere else, do some shit, and then come back here, and then come back here. Boy, fast travel would be really fucking nice. So then I go, get a potion, bring it to the dude, cool. Then I go back to the dungeon, cool. And then you go partway through the dungeon, and then there's another dude who's like, hey, go outside the dungeon and bring me something. The first thing that makes you leave the dungeon, if you knew to do it beforehand, or, you know, if you just didn't think the guy was a monster, or you didn't care and wanted to fight him, you could have taken care of that, and it wouldn't have been as annoying for you. This is something that it seems like you can't do until you get there. So like, oh shit, we need to get a recipe that's like really spicy. Hey, we know this person. Maybe if we tell them our situation, they can help us out. So again, you have to leave the dungeon, go all the way somewhere else. Excuse me, talk to this person, get a recipe, then go all the way back and go into the dungeon. It's obnoxious. It's annoying. Like, it's not... That, to me, is not fun. Also, then when you get to a certain part of the dungeon, it's like, okay, now you have to do an escort mission, which is essentially, go kill all the enemies in this dude's way. Which I did. Then I left the area, I guess, a little too quickly, and he didn't catch up, and it's like, oh... I now have to do all that again. Now, was it super hard? No. But I'm kind of at the point in the dungeon where, like, I've fought a lot of shit. I'm starting to run low on some of my, like, my TP and my HP, and I don't want to, like, use my items until I'm right about to fight the boss. Really? We're doing this? Okay. Like, I remember the mine dungeon, which is where you have to go get the brother to talk to him about the potion and shit, is you have to kind of keep waiting for these elevators, and they're slow enough where it starts to get kind of annoying. You have Ymir Forest, which I don't hate. Like, I kind of like the, like, gimmick and vibe of the forest and, like, of the puzzles and setups that you have to do. But there's so much backtracking involved in it that it goes from, like, this is kind of fun to, this is starting to get annoying. And then you have Letheon Gorge, which is essentially just trial and error, and it's really annoying. And if you fuck up your trial and error at a certain point, you'll have to do a lot of it over again, and it's really slow. I feel like I guess the best way of saying it is like this. Some of the puzzles in the game and like dungeon gimmicks are pretty fun and pretty interesting. And like once you kind of figure them out, they're not too bad. But there are things that feel like they are genuinely just there to waste your time and to kind of just get you annoyed. And that to me is not fun. Especially when I'm just like, dude, like I love this story. I love these characters. I can't wait to get to the next story beat. And it's like, I know what's going to happen, but I can't wait to see what's going to happen because I feel like I might get a new appreciation for it. I can't wait to get to like the next boss fight because the fights are really fun in this game. But no, I have to do this dumb shit and get sidetracked or just, and it's not even like, oh yeah, I'm getting sidetracked because like, ooh, cool, I found an interesting side quest. It's like, no, go, before you can do this, you have to do this dumb shit. But before you can do this dumb shit, you have to do this dumber shit, and etc., etc. And I don't like that design choice at all. The fact that there's no fast travel compounded with some of these, it just kind of makes it worse. Because if you had fast travel, I mean, is that going to help in Letheon Gorge? No. But with stuff like the Temple of Earth, it would go from, it would become a minor annoyance rather than, this is stupid and wasting my time. And the game is already like 50 hours. You don't need to waste my time. Please. Is there anything else I wanted to say about puzzles? Not really. That's pretty much it. I talked about the map, so let's talk about combat. Let's talk about the fun part of the game. So the way the game works is I played it on the GameCube. So I have a GameCube controller. Your A button is your physical attack, your B button is your special. So you got a neutral special, a side special, an up special, and a down special. So yeah, Lloyd just feels perfect for fucking Smash Bros. That's literally like how his fucking game works. That's a topic for another video. So Clay and I were just kind of talking about Smash like yesterday, the day before. So I kind of want to do a quick video about that. I'll probably do that after this. But combat it's an action game. It's not turn-based, where once combat starts, you're in like a bit of an arena, and you can move around, you can jump over enemies, you can hit them, you can start doing combos with your physical moves to your specials, special into a special, depending on what kind of moves you have. Sometimes you unlock moves that are just multiple special moves in one, where you do like one move and then another move, and then you can probably chain that to something else, and like shit can get fucking crazy. You can do unison attacks where like you specifically program. All right, with these 4 parties, you get 9 total party members. At most, you will only have 8 at one time and 4 in your party. You cannot switch people in and out of your party during combat, but outside of combat, do whatever you want. Some bosses, it's like I just took this really long breath. Some bosses will say, you have to have this character in your party, like you might have to have this and this person in your party. But for the most part, it's whoever the fuck you want to use them. Okay, so like, and then unison attacks are essentially all 4 of your characters attack at once. You decide which abilities they want to use. And sometimes if character A, like if Lloyd uses Tiger Blade and like Genis or Zelos cast Lightning, Lloyd will then do a follow-up called Lightning Tiger Blade. Or I think it's, if Rain uses Ray and Genis uses one of his level 3 spells, they get a combo move called Prism Stars. Like there's different shit like that, which I think is a really cool idea. If a character enters over limit, which there's no guarantee that it'll happen. I think it's a combination of like, you've taken a lot of damage, like essentially like you've been working really hard. You enter this state where I don't know if it works the same for every character, but I think it's like you become a lot harder to stagger. You can get your moves out a lot faster. Like I know when bosses enter over limit, they just start casting spells immediately. Like they don't have to wait to get them off. Like when you're casting spells, you can, if someone gets hit enough times, the spell can just completely get interrupted. You can just keep wailing on them. Another thing about overlimit is for some specific characters under certain conditions, like, all right, you have overlimit, you've used this specific move a certain amount of times, like you have this specific set of shit equipped. you can do what's called a Mystic Art, which is essentially your super move. In the GameCube version, only 4 of your 9 party members have Mystic Arts. Sheena, who is the summoner, all of her summons are Mystic Arts, because you can only use them in over limit, which is why she kind of sucks. Because this is like the one thing that like you're a thing, and you can only do it in these circumstances, and that's kind of ass. Lloyd has a super. I think that's Falcon Crest, which I've actually never seen in game. Like I didn't play a lot of Lloyd on this playthrough because I played him a lot my first time playing the game, and I just never used it. I don't know if I ever had the I probably had the chance, so I just couldn't figure out how. Genus is Indignation Judgment, which at least in this playthrough he only got Indignation like I think in Darius Carlon, so I just didn't have enough time to use it. And during the final boss, I saw Colette use Holy Judgment, which I didn't even know was in the game, because I know in the PS2 version, because I know the PS3 version is based on the PS2 version, I think, which has the extra content, which is when the other characters had mystics. So I didn't even know like Holy Judgment and Indignation Judgment were in the base game. So out of nowhere, I just hear her like casting a spell, and I'm like, all right, she's casting like Judgment or Holy Song. And then I hear the, oops. Like I hear kind of stuttering, and then I get the cut. It was like, "Oops, I messed up." I'm like, "Wait, that's in this? Yo, that's so hype! That's so fucking cool." Also, we did not win on that attempt because I tried to play Genus for the final boss, and I was like, "Yeah, he and Mythos have a bit of a history. Let's see how that works." Oh boy, I have 3 casters in my party. This is like going well. I'm gonna have to fuck with this. And then I fucked with it and it was fine. But, that's kind of the basis of combat. So like I said, you have 9 playable characters. Lloyd is, I use 2 swords, he's really fast, pretty strong, and can combo super well. Genus is the black mage, so he just sits in the back casting shit. Colette is... You can play her as a mage, because as she goes on, she just gets a lot of spells. Some are damage, some are buffs. And then she also, like, wields chakrams, so she's using them, like, to throw. So she can also be kind of like a mid-range fighter. Excuse me. Kratos does a little bit of everything. He's got some black magic, he has a little bit of white magic, but he's mostly like a melee fighter. Rain is your white mage, so she's sitting in the back, supporting, can cast a few offensive spells. Prosea is Bunga. She has a giant axe. She is slow as molasses, but her attacks do so much damage, and I just like seeing big numbers, that it's way too much fun. Zelos is Kratos. No, they're not the same person, but they have the exact same gameplay, because at one point Kratos leaves the party, and then Zelos is your replacement. Then, I completely skipped over Sheena. Whoops. Sheena would be in between Rain and Persea. Sheena is the summoner. She, hits people with cards. She can do some debuffs. She can do some buffs. And then when she hits her over limit, she can actually summon. Regal is the final character, and he's a fighting game character. He can hit shit. His moves are specifically designed to combo into each other. My first time playing the game, I played Lloyd and I played no one else. Like, I don't know if I literally touched another character on my first playthrough. So, and he's stupidly fun. I loved it. That's also kind of another reason I'm like, he's the main character, so I feel like I'm supposed to play him. I've been told that his AI really sucks, so I'm supposed to play him. And also, he's way too much fun. Why wouldn't I play him? This attempt, I was like, I specifically don't want to play Lloyd. Like, every now and then I might. And especially early on, there were times I was like, okay, this boss is giving me trouble. Let me just play as Lloyd real quick, and the boss would just explode. It was like, okay, he's my boss killer. But let me try playing other people. So in the Silverhaunt third of the game, I played a lot of Colette. I played Genus a couple times. I didn't find it as fun, just kind of standing in the back casting spells. I do want to go in and just start doing shit. I never played Rain, because I don't actually know how to target my teammates with spells. Now, quite a few of her, honestly, I think almost all of her healing spells, aside from one of them, are, I guess, Resurrection does need to be targeted. But for the most part, a lot of them are AoE, so it wouldn't be a huge problem, but I'm like, I'd rather have the white mage just kind of do what the white mage needs to do. I played Kratos and Zelos a few times. I actually had quite a bit of fun playing as Zelos. Sheena, I tried a couple times. I couldn't get into it. Regal, I tried, when I first got him, and he didn't have a whole lot of abilities yet, so I couldn't really do his combo potential. if I were to play the game a third time, which I don't plan on doing anytime soon, but if I were, I would make a concerted effort to really try out Regal, because he seems on paper like he's really interesting in how he works. But the character I played the most was Persea, because big number and making things explode is really, really fun. I love using Beast, which I just spin in a circle and watch things die. It has a long windup, and you can very frequently get interrupted before you do it, but it's almost kind of a high risk, high reward playing Persea. And despite being the Unga character, she has the body of a 12-year-old. I say body because she's actually not. She's like 30. Her story's really sad, but she's kind of made of paper. I noticed, like, boy, Persea just explodes when something looks at her. But it's mutual, because when she looks at something, it explodes. So yeah, it's kind of high risk, high reward. I dig this. She's really fun to play. And then I made kind of like a quick list of some of the bosses that really stuck out to me as being stupid fun. The fight between Yuman and Boda, I think, is the most fun fight in the game. The fight against the final fight against Yggdrasil is amazing. The fight against Shadow was really fun. It's like, we fucked him up. It was just like this perfect. I think it was just like, I'm so sick of the Temple of Darkness and these stupid things not following me. Fuck you. And he was gone. Pretty much anytime we fight Kratos, I think is really fun. And the fight against Abyssion. One of the things I said I was going to do is, like, I'm going to do the Devil Arm side quest. I tried it my first playthrough, and I remember not beating him. I remember, like, I can't beat this dude. He's too hard. I suck. The night before I finished the game, I was like, I'm going to clean up these super bosses. I'm starting with him. I beat him on my first try. No, I will say, I played the game on normal. I tried it on hard, like the first area, and I was like, oh, okay, so we're all made out of paper. Like, we just die. This isn't fun. Like, I'm sorry, I'm just not having as much fun. I'm just gonna play it on normal. Normal is fun for me, in this game at least. So, I feel like it's fair to say that. Like, I need to, like, this is my difficulty. But even on normal, this dude took fucking everything I had. He was not easy. We were still made out of paper. His attacks did so much damage, his combo moves, but, like, I just kind of start learning his patterns. Like, okay, when he does this, I still have to, like, I can't drop my guard until he does, like, his second or third move in a combo. Okay, like, he casts Indignation quite a bit. I like it when he casts Indignation because I have time to move out of it. Meteor Storm, it's not super accurate, so I can probably deal with it in some way. But when he just looks at me and I start getting hit, I explode. But it was really fun. And beating him on that first try, I was like, damn, I'm about to fuck everyone up. Then we did the final fight with Swordmaster, which was also not easy, but we got it done. No, I actually did Maxwell in between them, and I just kind of blinked and he was dead. Maxwell got wrecked. Poor bastard. Was there another super boss? I think that's it. Like, I didn't do the Colosseum. I just wasn't really that interested in it, I won't lie. But I did those three, and then the next day I went and fought Mythos, and Mythos honestly isn't that fun. Like, the fight against Yggdrasil is really fun, like, with what he does. But the Mythos fight is like, yeah, I'm just gonna do shit, and it's gonna, like, give you a bunch of status. And then some of the like, I don't have a lot of Panacea bottles because status has not really been a massive problem in the game, and some of them are just really annoying. It's like, oh yeah, you can't use your TP. Okay, and then some of them will persist even after you die and get rezzed. Like, this, what the fuck? This fight's ass. Like, it's not fun. Fuck you, Mythos. So that's gameplay. So, to sum that up, combat is really, 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 really fun. Don't love the final boss, but it's not like, oh man, this, like, is a stain. Excuse me. It's not like a stain on the entire game kind of thing. It's not like Kuro's final boss, which I fucking hated. To be fair, I basically hated Kuro's last chapter in terms of gameplay. I did not find it fun. As much as I hate to say it, because the chapter right before it is immaculate in terms of gameplay, and then this one is, hey, just keep refighting the bosses you've been fighting the entire game, and then the final boss is complete ass. This final boss is fine, but there's a lot of bangers throughout the game, and just regular combat is really good too. Traversal is fine, but when you start really getting into the, okay, you have to go all the way over here and all the way over here, and then go all the way over here to do the thing you were trying to do the first time, fast travel becomes really appreciated. And then the way dungeons and some of their puzzles are designed, some of them are really fun and interesting, others just aren't. And I have to take points off for it. It's a full point for all just the obnoxious bullshit. There's a part of me that's like, maybe I should take off just a little bit more, like 1.5. I'm like, I don't think so. I think a full point feels fair, because even still, some of the other dungeons weren't that bad, and even some of the ones I mentioned, like Ymir Forest, it's a little annoying, but it's not awful. The main gimmick of the Temple of Darkness is, I think, really fun. Letheon Gorge is ass. Temple of Earth is ass. I actually liked Wogaya. I thought the whole slippy slidey shit was surprisingly really fun. I enjoyed that one a lot. I think a lot of people consider it really annoying. I understand why. That one didn't super bother me. So I'll say a point off. So right now we're at it's a 9 out of 10 going into the narrative, and yeah, it's gonna get a really fucking high score. So the narrative, it's a 50-hour game. I'm not gonna go into like every little detail. It's like, oh, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. First, I just kind of want to address the main... God, we're already an hour and I haven't even really talked about the story. I'm sorry. To me, Symphonia has 3 major themes throughout the game. Number 1, discrimination. Discrimination is bad, and you should feel bad. It's not, to me, it's not nearly as nuanced as something like Zootopia, which is one of the reasons I absolutely adore Zootopia. But it's still an important theme. And how... I mean, I guess in a sense, maybe it kind of is. When the game is just kind of saying things like, hey, discrimination is bad and you should feel bad. I mean, it's right, don't get me wrong. But it's not as interesting. When you start getting into shit like Genus and how he's like, I am a half-elf. I am someone who faces discrimination in a lot of different places I go. For something I can't control. And it starts to breed that same discrimination in me to other people. Humans hate me. Elves hate me. Well, guess what? I hate both of you. That to me is actually really interesting. We're getting into mythos of how he was this great hero. He was the person who, ended this great war, was able to unite the worlds. But so many people couldn't see past the half-elf part of him. He wasn't Mythos the hero. He wasn't Mythos the savior. To them, he was still Mythos the half-elf. And that ate away at him. And it took away, I don't want to say his humanity necessarily. It almost kind of did. It feels like it's something that gradually ate away at his soul. Until he was just this bitter son of a bitch. There's probably a more elegant way of saying that, but I feel like bitter is such a perfect word to describe Mythos Yggdrasil. The way he talks about people, the way he constantly talks down to Lloyd. But then you've got his relationship with Genus and how this is his enemy. This is someone that I feel like to a degree he just kind of hates. You spend time with humans. You make friends with humans. What's wrong with you? But he also has a moment where he just saves Genus from something as Yggdrasil. And it's very clear, at least to me, that it's not, okay, he's doing this to gain sympathy, or this was a gambit. It was, no, he saw a fellow half-elf in danger and he acted. I feel like part of their relationship and their friendship was, I'm trying to get close to the group and I'm manipulating you. But there's moments like that where I'm like, there was something genuine in there, which is really interesting to me. Another major theme of the game is sacrifice. Specifically how any plan that Well, like, if a major component of a plan involves sacrificing the life of another person, that plan is fucking stupid. Any system that requires a life to be sacrificed needs to be fixed. You can't let people die. Colette's entire character arc is, I am the chosen. That's what I've been since birth. I've known that. I know that my duty is to go on a big journey and regenerate the world. You know, it's a dying world, so it's not like dying, but it's in decline. Like, I'm going to go give mana back and all this shit, and I'm going to become an angel. And at the end of it, I'm going to die. That's okay, because I know my role. My role is to save everybody and to help them. I exist to serve others. I'm not really a person anyways. I'm a means to an end. Which is why that scene when Kratos is talking to her and is like, hey, go ahead and take that off. You know what you're supposed to do. You have your role. She just says, no. She says a little more after that, too. She's like, no. Lloyd gave this to me. Like, it's my birthday present. It's really precious. Which is really sweet, but I just... no. Or, like, right before the first visit to the Tower of Salvation, when Sheena's in the party, and she's like, guys, I really like y'all. We've been through some shit. You're all really good people. Colette, you're, no pun intended, but you're a fucking angel. Like, you're just such a wonderful person. But if you go through with this, my world is fucked. I might have to fight you. I might actually have to kill you. And Colette, who can't talk, who just has to, like, write letters on Lloyd's hand, which is just the sweetest fucking thing. I love it. I'm gonna put a really quick pin. Something I forgot to talk about that I know I need to. But so, like, Colette basically writes out, if you, I'm not even gonna do this slow. She's like, okay, I understand your perspective. And if you get to that point where you feel like you have to fight us, go for it. But I'm not holding back. If you come at me, I will come at you with everything I have. And seeing Colette just grow that fucking backbone is like, you go! This is awesome! I love this. Like, I don't know why I didn't like you the first time I played the game. I was like, she's just annoying. All she does is apologize and trip and get kidnapped. And dude, Colette might be my favorite character in the game. She's awesome. So let me take that pin out. I forgot to talk about the opening. So I know I've said this before, how growing up, I did not care for the opening of the game. I thought it was very slow. It was just orchestral. And I was like, I wanted something with, like, lyrics, something kind of poppy. And I played, like, Berseria, where I never skipped the opening because it's hype. I played Vesperia, where I never skipped the opening because it was hype. And you have a Rise, where I skipped the second open. Like, I liked the first opening quite a bit. I just couldn't really get into the second opening. It's fine, and it's a Rise. It's fine. And I know the original Japanese version of Symphonia has, like, a more kind of poppy opening with some lyrics, and I think, like, the all subsequent versions have that opening. Wow, this opening with, like, the orchestrated shit is goated. I won't lie, I did not listen to it every time. There were some times where I was like, yeah, I just kind of want to go straight into the game. Excuse me, but I would frequently have multiple sessions a day, and I was like, at least one of my sessions I'm listening to the opening. I think it sounds so good. It's so gorgeous. It gets me so hyped and excited to play the game. I fucking love it. And then you get that scene where it gets more quiet with like Colette and Lloyd by the Tower of Mana as she's just, you know, writing on his hand. Like, this is the sweetest and also saddest, but also sweetest thing I've ever seen. Oh, I fucking love this. I love how literally the first shot of the game is the main antagonist. There's something about that that's really fucking cool to me. Like, when I saw that exact shot of Yggdrasil's back on the Nintendo Direct, I went, ah! It's like, it's Symphonia! We're finally getting the fucking remake! Let's go! Okay, it's a remaster. We're getting a remaster! Yeah, I'm gonna play it! Or I'll play the original, depends on which one's better, and apparently this is still the best version of the game. I mean, I guess some people might argue between this or the PS, or like the PlayStation version, because 60 frames per second versus additional content, but don't play the remaster. Anyways, I had to talk about that because I completely forgot. Maybe I should give it extra points for presentation because of how much I fucking love the opening. And how it, again, one of those things about the game I didn't appreciate the first time, and now like I can't imagine the game without it. So that's the second theme, is about sacrifice. The third theme is about atonement. To me, it's atonement, not redemption, because to me those are slightly different. To me, I feel like redemption is something you seek for a lifetime, or at least like several bad acts. Like, for me, it's like a character to be redeemed, like you have to have been like a consistent piece of shit or thorn in their side. To me, atonement is a bit more of, I did one thing. It was bad. But it was one thing, and I am trying to become a better person for that. To make sure, it doesn't happen again. Lloyd. His actions at the start of the game going to the Asalia Human Ranch broke the non-aggression treaty. So the city of Asalia, or I guess the village of Asalia, was burned, and a lot of people died. That blood is on his hands. It's on the design's hands, too. You can say it's on Genus's because it was Genus's idea, but Lloyd was the one that got caught. Lloyd was the one who was like, you know what, if we're going to do this, let's actually push this a little bit further. And it's something that clearly affects him throughout the game. A lot of that is in skits, which I haven't really talked about. That's not really... I will say one thing about presentations, I really wish skits were voiced. And maybe they are in Japanese, but they're not in English. And, so what skits are is essentially like, it just kind of anytime throughout the story, you'll get a prompt to just like push Z, and you just watch a little scene of the characters just talking to each other, which is a Tales staple. I almost said Trails because I frequently like mix up the two titles. It's a Tales staple. I don't know if it's been in every game since Fantasia, if it started at a certain point, but every Tales game I have played, they have been a thing. It is, just characters will just talk about shit. Sometimes it is talking about story events. Sometimes it is absolute dumb random bullshit. I love it. It's just, I feel like it's a really good way of having these kind of side conversations to flesh out your characters and flesh out your world. Just kind of make them feel more realistic, make them feel more like people without bogging down the narrative. It's like, okay, if you just want the story and like don't care about this, here you go. But here's some of the moments with characters like really connecting with each other or really ruminating on things that have happened. Lloyd will frequently, in his skits, just kind of ruminate on what happened in Asalia and how has he actually gotten stronger from where he was then. Not just physically, but also mentally and emotionally. Is he doing a better job of keeping people safe? Is he leading people into danger? Are his hands still stained red from that, or has he been able to wash them a bit? Will he ever actually be able to? It's stuff that he talks about and I think is really interesting. Kratos is someone who his wife turned into a monster and he had to kill her to save his son. And then after that, he didn't raise his son. He still has a relationship with him from afar as essentially as a stranger. And yeah, I was like, that was something I knew playing the game for the first time, is that Kratos is Lloyd's dad, but I really appreciated it this time, just how many scenes between the two of them, like, this is a father trying to teach his son and impart wisdom onto his son from the perspective of a stranger, and it's really good and really interesting. And how Kratos is consistently trying to help the party, even when he's fully betrayed them. Because he knows what Mythos is doing is wrong. And he's trying to, again, he's kind of trying to, I guess maybe with Kratos, maybe a little bit more of redemption. Because he's trying to atone and redeem himself for doing this. Like, here's some shit you can't do. It's like when he goes to Colette, he's like, Chosen, what the fuck are you doing? Let's just do this. Just come with me. If he wanted to force her, he could. He's strong enough to do that, but he doesn't. There's times where he just helps them out, like Forcesis in the Asalia Ranch. Like the fight with Origin, which I mean is more... And you could argue if he's like really trying to help them. I feel like he is. It's just... It works really well. You get Regal and his whole character arc. Excuse me, his whole character arc is, I murdered the woman I loved because she turned into a monster, and she begged me to. She told me, do this before I completely lose myself. It does not change the fact that I did it. Even if she wanted me to, even if there was no other option, I still took a life with my own hands. And I will never use these hands again. I like that. Like, you know, he's always in shackles. He's like, I will not use these to harm somebody. Now I'll kick a motherfucker. He's like, oh, I'll snap someone's neck with my feet. But I will only do that in self-defense, and more importantly, for the defense of my friends. And I think it's good. Regal's not my favorite, mostly because I feel like his thing of like, yeah, like I took a life, I'm responsible for that, is something that's already very well covered by Lloyd. Oh, and Sheena. I forgot about that. Sheena's whole thing is like, I am a summoner, and I'm afraid of making pacts with spirits because the first time I tried, I fucked it up. And as a result, that spirit went crazy and killed a good chunk of my village. My best friends, their parents died. The chief of the village, my grandpa, he's been in a coma and he hasn't woken up since. I am scared shitless of this. But if I can save my world by killing the chosen of the other one and keeping them from fucking me up because our system is shitty, I will do it. Because I can still save someone. And I really like that. It's all like really good. Like, I think these are interesting themes, and I like seeing the way they're expressed through the main cast. The story. What I love about the story is the goal doesn't ever change. Oh, again, it gets a little more complicated. There's some twists and turns along the way. But your goal at the start of the game is, we're going on a journey to save the world. By the end, it becomes, our goal is to save both of them. I like that. You know, it's like it expands a little bit, but without really changing. I think I don't necessarily like it when games do kind of change the goalposts. Let's look at some examples of games that do and games that don't. Trails in the Sky SC. This is a game where you start off with two goals. Get Joshua back and stop these snake bastards from doing shady shit. Those two goals never change throughout the game. Eventually, like, you're trying to stop the snakes and get more information about Joshua. Then you get Joshua back. You're like, okay, cool. Now let's stop the snakes. It works. Berseria. It is, this man killed my village and sacrificed them for some shady shit, including my little brother, and I want his fucking head. As the game goes on, does it get more complicated? Yes. Are there other characters who have their other goals and other people they kind of may or may not want revenge on and shit too? Yes. Is there a major wrinkle near the end? Abso-fucking-tiddly-positively. But the goal of killing Artorias never changes. And when he's the final boss, and with some wrinkles, but like when you get to that, like, this is what the entire game has been building up to, and it's so satisfying. Let's look at some other examples. Final Fantasy IX is a game about, there's a political conflict going on, and this queen is trying to start a war, and we're trying to figure out a way to get peace, like, or we can stop her army from gaining power. And when it's focusing on that and development of that, I really, really liked it. Then by the end of the game, it's like there's this dude who's like, hey, main character, so we're basically the Saiyans, like we're an arm, like a space thing, and you also have like a Saiyan monkey tail, which is why I really say they're like the Saiyans. The two of those together made me really think of that. He's like, I'm sending you down to the planet. Your job essentially was to make room for us. Like, they really are the fucking Saiyans. We're from space, we got tails and blonde hair, and that's only a Super Saiyan. And you're supposed to go basically kill everybody so we can now conquer it and live there. Where the fuck did this come from? And you can argue thematically that, like, this is designed. I don't know why I said Zidane's name that way. That was fucking weird. This is him coming to terms with who he is and his identity, which is a main theme of the game. Garnet does it. Aiko does it. Vivi certainly fucking does it. Steiner has to do it. Freya kind of does, and the game forgets she's a character, which is sad because I really liked Freya when they were focusing on her. But regardless, you could argue it kind of fits with the theme, but in terms of the story, it goes from still like some supernatural magic-y shit, but it feels kind of grounded to what the fuck is even happening anymore. Vesperia. I like Vesperia a lot, but I think the story is one of its weaker elements. Like, it starts with, I'm gonna go find the shit to replace our water pump, into big political conflict. Or no, then it becomes, the system is fucked. And people can do horrible things to get away with it, and someone needs to stop it. Then it becomes some bigger political shit, and then you fight Sephiroth at the end. It didn't feel like it was necessarily like the game was getting bigger, and just like they kind of just kept changing what the story was about. Like, look at something like, again, like Final Fantasy VII, which to me is a perfect parallel to Vesperia, because I played Vesperia right after I first played 7. I was like, this is the same game. It feels like Tales of like Namco saw 7 and went, we need this. Now Vesperia came out way later, but it feels like a really big influence. 7 is all about saving the environment. First you're saving it from the Shinra, then you're saving it from Meteor. But it's always about saving the environment. Like, that core theme and core story, I think, persists the entire way through. That's what I really like about Symphonia's story. It gets bigger. There's an entire separate world to explore and save, but the story never deviates from being about saving people's lives. How do we save the world? How do now we save the worlds without sacrifice? And I love that. Getting into the actual characters themselves, we're almost done. I think this is the last section. I just kind of like my notes, just kind of summing up what each character's arc is, like who they are as people. Lloyd is a dumb hick. He's this dude from the sticks who's not very book smart at all. But he's someone who's able to realize that. He realizes his weaknesses, again, both physically, emotionally, and mentally, and is doing what he can to get better. Not just for himself. He's like, yeah, I have blood on my hands. Their deaths were my responsibility. And I need to do what I can to make sure no one else dies on my watch. I know a lot of people don't like Chocolat, and I understand why. But I think she's important, and I like his relationship with her. Here is someone who blames him for one of those lives, and Lloyd has nothing to say in his defense. Other people are able to defend and are like, hey, no, it's like he didn't kill that person because, he's a monster, it was self-defense. Like, she literally transformed into a monster, and it's what he had to do. And Lloyd's like, no, she's right. I killed her grandmother. I can say whatever I want. Again, that's why I don't like Regal as much. I think it's good, but it's just kind of Lloyd 2.0 in the exact same game. I murdered somebody. It was self-defense. I kind of had their permission to do so. It doesn't change the fact that I took a life. And if she wants to hate me for that, that's on her. She's more than willing to do so. Now, the fact that she's like, I don't even want to get saved by you, into leading her get kidnapped, a little annoying, but then she gets the call at the Mayor of Visalia, and fuck that guy, so it all kind of works for me. You've got Genus, who is this little brat who's really smart, and I think Genus can be really funny at times. Like, when he's like, I remember there was this one skit in Letheon Gorge where he's just fucking with Zelos. I thought it was hysterical. Like I said, like, he's been so victimized by discrimination that he in turn has started to discriminate against other people. And he's like, I realize what I'm doing is wrong and that I'm just continuing the cycle. But how can I not? How can I not hate people for being who they are when that's exactly what they're doing to me? Now, I don't hate my friends because they see me as Genus. They don't see me as a half-elf. Like, Lloyd, you're my best friend. I hate humans. I don't hate you. I have no reason to hate you. I could never hate you. But I do still have my own problems, and I'm aware of it. and it's something I have to work on. You have Colette, who, like I've said, she is the chosen, and that's all she's identified as that, like, again, like not that I am a person, I'm just kind of a thing that exists to help people, and I know I'm going to die, so I don't even really have a right to really live or enjoy my life, because it's A, just for the benefit of others, and 2, it's gonna end anyways. So seeing her really just, again, like, grow and like get to a point where she even says, like, I don't want to die. I don't want to sacrifice my life anymore. I've gotten past that. I want to be able to help people without people having to die. No, I like being alive. I like my friends. I like my family. Not really her family. I don't really get a lot of them. But it's like, I love my friends. I love this crew. Please don't let me die. I fucking love it. Yeah, you've got Kratos. I kind of went over him earlier too. He's a father teaching his son from the perspective of a stranger, and how he's trying to build that relationship without getting too close. I think that's really interesting. It's really sad. You have Rain, who is this woman who not only deals with the same discrimination as Genus, that's her brother, she remembers the faces of their parents. She remembers being abandoned by their mother because they're half-elves. And it's, to her, it's not just, yeah, like, there's people who discriminate, but, like, people are stupid. I don't care. My own mother abandoned me because she wasn't strong enough to deal with this bullshit. And she never really got over that. Now, there's also her love for, like, archaeology and ruins, which is really funny and really endearing. And then the game kind of implies that that's just a coping mechanism. It's like, it's something she truly came to love. But a lot of that was also because she remembered, like, the ruins in the area where she was abandoned, and she's always been trying to find a way back. And the scene where you go to Exire and you talk to their mother, who is just so mentally broken, she doesn't know who they are or what anything is. I was weeping. I 100%, full disclosure, I did Persea's thing, when she kind of talks to some of her old friends and is reminded of her lost time. We're going to get to Persea in a bit. Yeah, Persea's not next, it's Gina. But we'll get to her in a bit. Like, I did that story and I was like, well, that fucking hurt. Now I'm really emotional. And I did a Rain's story, and, like, have you seen that? There was that video of one of the Super Bowls. It was either Broncos, Seahawks, or Broncos, Panthers. It was when No Sean Moreno was on the team. I know he was for the Seahawks. I don't remember if he was on for the Panthers. Where during the national anthem, he's just crying, like, you got all the water just coming down. That was me watching that scene. I was just weeping, man. It fucked me up. After that, you have Sheena, who is the assassin, who is essentially caught between, I want to save my world, especially because of how I fucked up earlier. I want to be able to save the people of my village to make up for what I did. But in doing so, I have to take an innocent life. Because getting to know the chosen of this world, she is a good person. She does not deserve her fate at the end of this, or her fate at my hands. What do I do? Because if I go through with this, I save my world, but at the cost of a life. But if I kill her, but if I let her do this, my world is fucked. And, that gives the people of my village even more reason to hate me. I don't know what to do. Persea, who was this girl that was experimented on, and for this long time was essentially catatonic. She was essentially a zombie. She felt no emotions, didn't really realize what was happening around her. Like, there's a point where they talk about how her dad died years ago and is just in the house with her. Like, he's still just in his bed. And you can go into there and everyone's like, oh God, let's not go into that room. Let's not talk to Persea about this. And then as soon as that kind of spell gets broken, she's just like, where's my daddy? Like, I haven't seen him. How is he? And then she finds out, and yeah, I mean, she immediately buries him because she now realizes what the fuck is going on. And her entire arc is, I've lost time. I think it's 16 years. She's like, that's 16 years of my life that are gone, where I can't get back. Like, there's so many people I know who have grown up and lived lives, and they just left me behind. Like, I'm almost 30 years old, but I still look like a kid because my body didn't even mature either. Where did my time go? And again, like that scene where after you kill Rhoda, I was like, I'm not gonna get my time back. It fucking broke my heart. It really did. Then you have Zelos. You have this lecherous, debaucherous goofball whose entire persona hides how much he hates everything and everyone, especially himself. He's very racist against half-elves, because like it's not, I think this is something from like a, well, he learns about a side quest, because like he, at one point he's like, yeah, everyone in Tethiel hates half-elves, I'm no different, but it is what it is. Whereas like, oh no, apparently a half-elf is the reason his mom died, so he's very racist. But through getting to know people like Rain and Genus, it's actually made him realize, no, this is fucking stupid. Like, they're not bad people, they're not inherently evil or anything, it's just, it's a shitty thing that happened. And how he hates how everyone just sees him as the chosen. Kind of like with Colette, it's like, this is what I am. But while Colette is very demure, and it's like, I'm the chosen, how can I help? Zealous is like, I'm the chosen, what can you do to help me? And it's made him very disdainful about other people, because again, kind of like with Colette, that's all they see is the chosen. Like, there's this one part I absolutely love, which is part of a side quest, where it's when you get like everyone's really nice costumes and their extra titles and shit. If you specifically meet with Zelos at the terrace, and Lloyd's like, hey Zelos, like, what are you doing up here? Like, it's a big party, there's a lot of women down there. I figured you would be the first person down there schmoozing. And Zelos is like, nah, I mean, every now and then it's fun to kind of people watch. Like, why don't we just kind of sit here and look down on everyone? Because, sometimes it's really hard playing the fool. To just have that mask on. And, like, he doesn't go, like, quite as wordy as I'm about to. But it's that sense of, like, it's hard to act like you don't care. And that you aren't aware of what people think about you and what they say about you and what their machinations are. And sometimes I just like to watch them. Watch them scurry, these little bastards. And again, this is not a scene that's even voice acted, but you just feel the venom in what he's saying, and Lloyd's kind of like, are you good, bro? But like, it's a scene that's really interesting to me. Sorry, and then you have Regal, who, like I said, like, yeah, like, he's someone who murdered the woman he loves and is seeking atonement for it. Which, again, like, I like it, but kind of already taken care of it. So those are your 9 party members, but I have one more person written down, because I have Mythos. The hero, like the great hero who saved the world, but was broken by the loss of the one person he actually cared about saving. And I love how you go through the game. It's kind of like, it's like a reverse Trails in the Sky. Because the Trails in the Sky, because of course I have to talk about Trails in the Sky more. And FC, as Estelle and Joshua go on their journey, they learn more about their dad, Cassius Bright. Physical dad, in Estelle's case, adopted dad in Joshua's case. Where, as far as Estelle knew, her dad was, he's a bracer, he's a pretty important dude, he's a pretty strong guy, but he's also just her bumbling dad, he's nothing that special. And as the game goes on, you learn how badass her dad is, and how this is one of the baddest dudes on the entire planet, and she had no idea. So as you go along, you start to realize just how fucking cool he was. And Mythos is very similar, where you kind of know that vague story, like, oh yeah, that was the first chosen, he was this great hero, he did all this cool shit. And every time you fight a summon spirit, they're like, oh yeah, we first had a pact with him. And you just keep hearing his name, you're like, damn, He saved the world. Damn, he did all the summon spirits. And Gnome's like, what's this bullshit with you guys fighting me 4-on-1? Mythos did it by himself, and he whipped my ass. And then by the end of the game, when you realize what he's become, you just see how far he's fallen. You know, for all that talk of being a hero, all the great things he supposedly did, he's just this bitter child. And it's I don't remember exactly. I think it's like specifically Zelos, where it's like right before you fight him, because in this playthrough I saved Zelos, and I'm so glad I did. I fucking love his character. Where Mythos is just kind of giving his side of the story. It's like, this is how I felt. Like, this is how, like, all the discrimination, like, it doesn't matter how many people I saved. I was never anything more than a half-elf. Like, we did this whole big journey, did all this shit. I just wanted a place for me and my sister to feel accepted, and we never found it. And eventually my sister died. And I just want to have a home. I just want to have somewhere where I can live in peace with the person I love most. And Zelos just says, shut the fuck up. How dare you try to make yourself the victim in all this? With all the things you've done, the system you created, all this chosen shit, this crucious shit, the designs, all the people you have had slaughtered. Fuck you. It's fantastic. I don't have a favorite character of this bunch because I really like all of them. I feel like on any different day, depending on my mood, I could say it's Lloyd, Colette, Zelos, Persea, or Mythos. And the other 5 I think are all high quality. To me, I can't quite give the story a 6 out of 5 as much as I want to. Just because I feel like there are some things where the side quests flesh the characters out a little bit more. Or it's like the thing like with Rain and her mom. That's something that I wish we could do as part of the main story, because I didn't even know about that in my first playthrough. Like, I looked at a guide to kind of find some extra shit. The thing with Persea and her old friends. Again, like, these are minor things. So, you can say it's like, this is not part of the main story. It's fine for it to be side stuff. But it feels like this is really important character shit. And I wish it wasn't so easily missed. That's kind of what I mean. And I feel like the fact that important character shit can be easily missed, I can't give it the super perfect score. And the fact that the Pope, he's kind of the main antagonist of the second third of the game, and is a major antagonist throughout all of Tethe'ala. But you don't really get resolution with him, again, unless you do some side shit. Which I'm glad I did, but I was like, yeah, there's a certain point in the game where he just kind of disappears. Like, he's not in power as much, but he's not fully resolved unless you go out of your way to do it, and I don't like that. I know I've criticized Azure for similar things, and I stand by those criticisms, which did come out today, so at some point I do want to play it. I've played it, that's why I was able to criticize it. But I would like to play the official translations of Zero in Azure and see if some of my criticisms are better handled with, like, in a different translation. But regardless, if I called those problems out in Azure, I feel like I need to call them out in Symphonia as well. However, I still think the like base narrative of Symphonia and its characterization is still really, 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 really fucking good, and I do think it does go a bit above and beyond. So while I can't give it the full 6 out of 5, I'll give it a 5.5 out of 5. So to me, that is a 14.5 out of 15 final score, which I was hoping it'd be a little higher with a game that just means so much to me and that I love so much. I was kind of hoping it would be like some insanely high number, but even still, that's a really good score. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the time. This has been an hour and 28 minutes. This has been such a long video. Because I have a lot to say, and it's a game that means the world to me. If this was a game... Worlds, because there's 2 of them in there. But if this was a game that didn't mean as much, it would probably... I mean, I can't say that, because like, I can talk for a while about games in general. So, never mind. Fuck it. Forget that part. Let me just say this. It's a 14 out of 15. Or, excuse me, 14.5 out of 15. It's a great fucking score for a great fucking game. play it. If you haven't already, make sure you play a good version, the GameCube version. Apparently the PS3 version is one of the better versions as well. I think it's also on the PS4. Don't play the remaster, but if you have played it, I hope you liked it as much as I did. Maybe even more so. Maybe the obnoxious puzzles didn't bother you nearly as much. If you have played it and you didn't care for it, I'm sorry it didn't click with you. Maybe on a replay, some of the things that didn't click would click a bit more. I know some of them did for me, for sure. But if you're also like, I don't want to play a 50-hour game again, hoping it would get better, I understand that. I can respect that. I'm sorry it didn't work for you, but like I said, to me, this is one of the most important games I've ever played, and I'm really glad to say that it holds up.